I started at the Midnight Mission in 2012 when I went back to school to become a drug and alcohol counselor. Part of that certification required we do an internship, and I applied here at the Midnight Mission. It was the only organization that told me there would not be a job after my internship because they just didn't have it in the budget. But they said I would absolutely get the best education possible if I did it here. And so I did, and on the last day of that internship, they came to me with a job offer to be a drug and alcohol counselor. I worked in that for about a year and a half and was promoted to assistant program manager and started to work on the healthy living program that we developed here at the Midnight Mission for Recovery Services. About a year and a half after that, I was asked to go down to development, and development was something I knew nothing about. I mean, zero. I had a plan. My plan was to become a program manager and move out of the state, and that was going to be the end of California for me. But instead, I ended up going downstairs to development and learning a whole new side of human services. It's one thing to want to help the people that are suffering on the street. It's another thing to fund it. And, you know, where I had been a counselor and was used to being of service to individuals, for the first time, now I saw what it was like to be of service to the organization that helps the individuals, of service on a larger scale. And you know, I found my calling there. I did really well. I made some great relationships with some of the major donors for the Midnight Mission. And I worked there for, I think, about 5 or 6 years. And then I got a little itchy. I wanted to grow. And unfortunately, in development, there really was no place to go. We have a great CDO or Chief Development Officer. So there was no real place for me to grow to, and I left the organization. I became the director of the San Fernando Valley Rescue Mission, and part of that job entailed building a men's residential treatment facility. So I got to learn a whole new skill set, now executive leadership. I was taking a project from the beginning and watching something being built and come to life. And it was a 3-year project that we finished in 18 months, which I'm very proud of. It houses 40 men. It's a faith-based organization. They do great work, but it wasn't the Midnight Mission. In my heart, there's a special thing here for me. I think that we do recovery services, I don't want to say better. We do it differently. And I feel we're really effective at dealing with the population we serve. So in a conversation with my mentor, Mike Arnold, the previous CEO, he suggested that I take a look at a proposal he had to build a 300-bed facility in the San Fernando Valley. And I was sold. And I came back to the Midnight Mission and worked at doing a feasibility study for that project and in development, building the relationships that would eventually lead to major donations. Somehow or another, I got thrown in the mix for the CEO, and I'm going to be completely honest, didn't really have much expectation of getting the job. I thought it would be good for my career to go through the process, to experience what it's like to interview on that level. And I was called in, and they made the offer, and here I am sitting in this chair. Still a little in shock, but really ready for the challenge of taking this organization into the future and expanding what we do. We all know in Los Angeles, it's not just Skid Row anymore. We have such a need for recovery services in the San Fernando Valley, all throughout LA. But we have to take this one step at a time for the organization. So our next step will be an expansion into the San Fernando Valley. It'll be a men and women's recovery treatment facility with all the wraparound services that somebody needs to go from hopelessness to self-sufficiency. And that has always been the thing I loved about the Midnight Mission. We don't warehouse people here. We don't just have them come in, sit around for a year, and then say, okay, your time's up, it's time to go. This program actually takes somebody who's been on the street, who's willing, and by the time they're done, there's family reunification, their medical issues, their legal issues, their drug and alcohol dependency issues, sometimes mental health issues. All of them have been dealt with, treated. They're now employed, saving money, and instead of going out and looking for low-income housing, my goal is to see them go out and just look for housing. Where do you want to live? That's the goal, right? So that's kind of how I got here. I think downtown, I would like to see us be able to increase our impact on the area itself, provide more services, allow more people to come in, and more programs, especially with women, to focus on creating the largest impact we can. Not everybody has an addiction issue. And I think that one of the things we have to start doing as society as a whole is stop looking at the homeless. These are individuals, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters. Nobody that I know of who's ever come through this program was born on Skid Row. So there's reasons that people are ending up here. And that's what I'd like to see the Midnight Mission get involved in, is helping those core issues that get someone to this state of hopelessness and lifting them up out of that. And all we can do is get bigger and get better, right? So the expansion is really our next step. It's the same answer as before. We need to expand our services so that we can help more people. And at the same time, we have to cultivate the relationships with the people who help fund the Midnight Mission. We're not reliant on government money. The beds we have for emergency services, is there some government funding? Yes. Nowhere near what it costs to actually have them in our programs. So you may get 40 cents on the dollar to have a bed, but now you need to supply that person with water, food, continuous shelter, you name it, medical, transportation. There's a whole list that's not funded in that bed. So we have to continue to grow our network of donors who come down, see what we do, feel the hope coming back into these people, and it encourages people to get more and more and more involved. I think COVID took a toll on everybody, and what I see is that COVID took a toll on this particular building just because we couldn't open up like we used to. I want to see things like art with a mission, music with a mission that our Director of Public Affairs, Georgia Berkovich, provides. These are excellent community projects that not only bring awareness to the plight of the people we serve, but it also is just fun. And to walk in and see people laughing and smiling that weren't smiling when they got here is part of the magic of the Midnight Mission. I would encourage anybody who sees somebody on the street struggling to come visit the Midnight Mission, to answer the questions of why is that person out there? Why are they doing what they're doing? How can I help, right? I think part of the Midnight Mission's philosophy moving forward is just kindness and love. When you come into the Midnight Mission, I want you to have an experience where the parking attendant smiles and says, "Good morning, welcome to the Midnight Mission." I want you to get to security and see the staff that are so dedicated that, listen, manage to smile at you and say good morning, but know that they have just dealt with 50 people with bad attitudes who are very demanding and saying, "I want what I want right now," and still have the dedication to smile at each and every person. They're here for the right reasons because we care, right? That's the feeling you get when you come to the Midnight Mission, and I think everybody should experience that. To see people as individuals rather than a group is a really powerful thing, right? Instead of just pigeonholing and, oh, they're all addicted to drugs, or, oh, they all won't work, nothing could be further from the truth. Starting as a drug and alcohol counselor, I get the phone calls 10 years later that say, "Dave, I'm getting married. Would you come to my wedding?" I see the babies being born. I see the homes being purchased. I'm references to people moving up the corporate ladder that were right outside this building with a bottle of vodka in their hand, and now they need a professional reference. The successes are what we want to focus on. And if we just keep our eye on that, the work gets done, and more people get helped. That's the beauty of our program. I would just encourage everybody to come down and take a look at the Midnight Mission. You don't have to donate money. You can volunteer time. Not only do we have meal services that, we're feeding up to 700 people every breakfast, lunch, and dinner with a very limited budget and a very limited staff. We depend on volunteers to come help with that. But even more than that, if you wanted to do a team build, we have projects throughout our organization that need to get done. And, the volunteers are our lifeblood. Come down on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday morning, spend 4 hours. We'll have the project ready to go for you, show you what to do, let you do it. You can put us on your social media. We can start to build that awareness of what's going on in your own neighborhood, and we can get one more person off the street, right? That's the goal.